Hello everyone, welcome to the GeoEcologist. I am Dr. Krishnanand and you have been watching my videos related to geography, environment and research methodology on my channel, The GeoEcologist. So if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing because we are going to learn about the various aspects of geography and several other topics related to environment on this channel. Now, in today's session in population geography, what we are going to learn is the various sources for data of population around the world and India. So why do we learn these sources of data? Because without data, we'll not be able to comprehend the interlinkages between the population, the demographic dynamics and its spatial patterns and connotations. So before we go ahead, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and do share the videos with others as well. So now, let's learn about the various sources of this population data with special reference to India as well. Now, if you look into this particular graph at first, what does it show? It shows us the world population by region. So remember, this Asian region has the dominating population of the world, then is Africa, then is Europe, and then South America and North America if you observe the distributions here. And this is where you see the 7 billion mark being crossed already. So we are now heading towards 8 billion mark of population across the world. But how do we know this graph? We know it from different sources of population data. So remember, if we don't have the data on population, we'll not be able to comprehend, we'll not be able to plan for future and several other things related to where data is the most important thing. So in today's session, what we are doing here is learning about the various sources of population data and how to acquire it and from where we can get it, which are the most important sources of data in the world population and Indian population. So let's understand that population geography is an empirical science, observation-based science that discusses the regional differences of population parameters. As you can see the regional differences here. Now, what does a population geographer do with the data? Why is it needed? There are two specific reasons for it. What are these? To record the situation of population at a given point of time and space. Very important. And to record the population dynamics. When we say population dynamics, it means variations in the population, mortality, fertility and several others that we keep learning. So that's where the flow of data becomes very important. Birth, death, migration in a particular area. These things are the important aspects when we talk about the spatial dimensions of population. Areal differentiation in population geography, as we have learnt in the introductory lecture. Now, let's understand that why is accurate population data necessary? So remember, not just population data or any population data. It's important the accuracy, right? And without accuracy, we cannot have effectiveness or we say efficacy. So critical decisions for a nation, for an organization or family are made on the basis of population data. Remember, historically we talked about that how in the Rig Vedic times as well, in the Romans and Greeks as well, in the Middle Ages as well, and in modern times, every time this statistics based on the numbers of people were always considered by the administrators for decision making. So population data contains various influential details. For example, birth, death, demographic information like age, sex, annual income, occupation, language and several others if you observe. Now, why these data become important and with accuracy? Because if we want to progress, if we want to develop, remember, socio-economic, economic, political, cultural progress of a country depends on these data because planning depends on the data that you have, right? So answers to questions such as how many of us are there in the country, on what basis are we divided, do we possess enough food, land and other sources. And remember, we are talking about SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, intergenerational equity, intragenerational equity. How we are going to do this if we don't have population data? So remember, this is the precise reason that not just data but accurate data is what we are looking for in population dynamics. So now let's understand these sources of collecting population data. What are the various sources across the world and India? Census is the prime source. Then we have vital statistics, demographic sample surveys, population registers and international publications. These are the 5 major sources for population data. So you can just in one particular diagram or flow diagram, you can remember this and understand it for yourself, that what are the 5 major points or 5 major sources of this data. Now one by one we are going to learn about each one of them. So first let's start with the census. So remember, it is the single largest source of data of population studies all over the world, not just India, right? So history of census, if you observe, the example of modern type of census that we know have been conducted in New France, that is present day Quebec in Canada, in 1665, and Iceland in 1703. This is where the beginning of modern census comes, after the exploration age, right? So first periodical census, right, began in US in 1790 and Britain and France in 1802. This is the history of census, how this regularity in census started taking place. So the decennial census, that is every 10 years that we do, that is Census of India, has been conducted for 15 times by 2011 already. It means that during British Viceroy Lord Mayo, it was started from 1872 and regularly being taken from 1881, that we should know, right? And since 1881, we started doing the census, and post 1949, it has been conducted by Registrar General and Census Commissioner of India under Ministry of Home Affairs, Government of India. So which ministry is the nodal ministry? Ministry of Home Affairs, that we need to look into. So all censuses since 1951 were conducted under the 1948 Census of India Act. That is very important to note here. So now let's look into some personalities as well who paved way for these kind of data collection with their vision in India. So remember, W.W.M. Yeats was appointed Census Commissioner in 1941, who was officially the last of British Raj era. And he died, and in 1948 he was replaced by R.A. Gopalaswamy. So R.A. Gopalaswamy was the first census commissioner of independent India, and from there the journey began. Now one more personality is very famous. If you remember, Prashanth Chandra Mahalanobis. He founded the Indian Statistical Institute in 1931 in Kolkata, and later on in 1959, through an act of Indian Parliament, this particular institute was declared as Institute of National Importance. And remember why it is of national importance? Because it gives us analysis of statistics of these population data across the country. So ISI, what we say is Indian Statistical Institute, functions under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, MOSPI, under Government of India. And ISI Kolkata is the headquarter with centers at New Delhi, Bengaluru and Chennai as well. And Tezpur Center, that is the 4th center of ISI, were inaugurated in 2011 itself. So that's how we look into these people. For example, Gopalaswamy as well as Mahalanobis, and the famous Mahalanobis model, the great statistician name, is also famous in 1950s. Now if you look further, the characteristics of the census. So two major characteristics is the periodicity and simultaneity. Now what is this two? Periodicity and simultaneity. Remember, periodicity is the decennial, the regular interval that we create the census. Most of the countries across the world do it in particular time interval which is fixed. So in India we have 10 years. Then what is simultaneity? Now it's very important to count the population of a country at a particular point of time, right? If we count the population at different points of time, we'll have a variation in data. Right? We cannot say absolute data of one particular time. So that specific point of time is also called reference date or census moment or census time. Right? So as a general rule, a day is fixed for the census, and also it is called census moment. So when you hear the word census time, census moment, these are the same things. It basically means that particular simultaneity of data across the country. Only on one day the data is collected, on the same day. First March of the census of year is considered, right, from sunrise to sunset. This is when we consider that this is the census moment. Now there are two ways of conducting census if you observe. One is called de facto method and one is de jure method. So what is de facto method? It's based on individual's current residence, where the individual is residing right now, right? And it is conducted in urban regions in a country with high income as well. So it's just one night enumeration which is done here. Now what is de jure method? It's about person's permanent residence, where the permanent residence of a person is there. So compared to de facto method, it is more practical and scientific, and it's also called period enumeration. So these are some of the words that you should consider learning when we are looking into sources of data under census. So periodicity, simultaneity, de facto method, de jure method, these are some things which are important to learn. Now looking into the problems and challenges in census taking, obviously for a country like India or several other populous countries in the world, the cost is too much. Intrusiveness or privacy concerns is another important issue these days. Difficulties in accessing the secure apartments and so many other unsafe areas of the world. Then more complex living arrangements have been in fashion. For example, individuals living in multiple locations such as children of separated parents, homeless, nomads, refugees, there the census is very difficult. Then timelines in relation to the user needs. For example, right now we are still looking into 2011 census. It's been already 10 years. We do not have the data for 2021 yet. It means what? In 10 years, many things would have changed multi-folds. So what happens? The timelines in relation to the user needs is very important. The frequency, right? Then corruption is a rampant issue across the world and India as well. So insufficient number of professionals, it means the lack of manpower. These are certain challenges that we need to overcome while taking the census. Now looking further into the second important source of data of population, that is called Vital Registration System or Civil Registration System, VRS or CRS. What is this VRS CRS? It's basically talking about a continuous, permanent and compulsory recording. The three keywords you should remember: CPC, compulsory, permanent and continuous recording of the data related to birth, death, marriage and several others. Now history goes back that first civil registration system was introduced in England and Wales in 1836 and Scotland in 1854. Now if you go to the Government of India website, in Census of India, you will find sample registration and vital statistics like this. Sample registration system, civil registration system, annual health survey. You can go to the website and look into this particular. So uses of this CRS or VRS is what? There are two kinds of uses. One is for individual and one is only for administration purpose. So for individual, it provides a safeguard to social status and individual benefits. It serves as a vital evidence to prove nationality. Then among other benefits, the system provides individual with unique identity, that is the relationship with the parents and identification, and also in cases to settle the inheritance, insurance, claiming family allowances and several other security schemes, social security schemes. This has a benefit. And for administration, why it is important? Because it is one of the very important tool to study the dynamics of population of a country or a region. In case of birth, it provides the information to the government about vaccination, immunization, and very importantly, during these pandemics, this has been observed, and death records as well in terms of the electoral roll, social security, and several others. That's where it's become very important data. Now, look into the third important source, that is called demographic sample surveys. The word itself is, it's not a complete survey. It's just part of the total. It means just a sample from the total. So data is obtained through selected sample. Now this sampling method was always advocated by the Mahalanobis. So that's very important to understand that Mahalanobis always suggested that sampling system would make sense in many decision making. So there are three types of demographic sample surveys going on in India. The first is called NSS, that is National Sample Survey, and this is done on regular basis by NSSO, National Sample Survey Organization, since 1972. Right, under Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, and it serves as important tool for Indian economy, very famously giving us data for household structure, consumption and production patterns. Then it also has some weaknesses which needs to be taken care. That sometimes change in data collection methodology midstream leads to some confusion as well, and there is no fixed rotation schedule for this. That is somewhere it is also having a weakness. Now coming to the second part, that is sample registration system. Now this is also called SRS. As you know, this is available on the Census of India website. It talks about several kinds of data estimates related to these. If you observe infant mortality rate, birth rate, death rate and other fertility and mortality indicators, this we get from sample registration system. It is initiated on a pilot project basis by the Office of Registrar General India in select few states in 64 and 65, right? And now it is on more frequent basis. It is done every 10 years. It aligns with the census frame. Right? Now the third and the most important, which was also recently in news if you have observed, it's called National Family and Health Survey as the third type of sample survey. What is it? It's called NFHS in short. And recently what has happened, it has given us a data said that we have improved indicator in terms of the sex ratio in India, 1020 females per 1000 males. That's why it was in news. Now NFHS is a collaborative project. Between whom? That is to be considered. It's between IIPS in Institute of Population Sciences, Mumbai. Then you have ORC Macro, Claverton, Maryland, USA, and the East-West Center, Honolulu, Hawaii, USA. Now these centers collaborate when they collect these data and give us the reports on analysis. Now, advantages of the sample system. What are the advantages? It's very important to consider here that it requires a small number of staff or interviewers, which is a problem in the major census because it's just a sample. So with little manpower, it can be done. With help of more skilled interviewers, properly designed questionnaires, it gives us more accuracy, more accurate information. Data obtained through sample survey are more reliable, we say. And sample surveys can be conducted more often, right? The frequency can be increased on certain issues. So issue-based survey, challenge-based survey can be obtained, but there are certain disadvantages of sample surveys as well. So sample surveys cannot replace the complete counts. Obviously, it's just a sample. It can never be 100% true. And efficient sampling requires stratification of proper kind and also the knowledge frame. It's very important that people who are conducting these surveys are knowledgeable people. So sample surveys are largely dependent on census, and so an inefficient, incorrect census will lead to the faulty sample survey. Because it is dependent on the major census, remember the sample also will have the fault if the original census has a fault. So these are some of the disadvantages. Now coming to the fourth pillar of the source of data, that is population registers. Now what is this population register? It says it is a registration system of population of the nationality. So Sweden is the first country which started this system. Now, if you observe in India, the Citizenship Act 1955 and the Citizenship Registration of Citizens and Issue of National Identity Cards Rules 2003. These are the two important acts which you need to consider when we talk about this preparation of the population registers in India on village and sub-town or sub-district or district, state and national level. Now, it's mandatory for every usual resident of India to register in NPR, we say, which is National Population Register. So, demographic particulars in this NPR, what kind of data you can find out? Look here, name of the person, relationship to head of household, father's name, mother's name, spouse name, then you have sex, date of birth, marital status, place of birth, nationality as declared, present address of usual residence, duration of stay at present address, then permanent residence, then occupation, educational qualification. So numerous data you can find out on population registers. And this could be used in planning the population, right? This is where it becomes really important. Now, why population registers were in use? National Registers of Citizens. Remember, NRC was in news because of certain protests against it recently. So NRC, which is called National Register of Citizens, is register of all Indian citizens whose creation is mandated by 2003 amendment of Citizenship Act 1955. And what is its purpose? To document the legal citizens of India and also locate where illegal immigrants can be identified and they can be deported back. So it has been implemented for the state of Assam till now, since 2013 and 14, and many times we see the protests against this, right? So the government of India planned to implement in the rest of the country by 2021, but still it is under observation and it's still under protest as well in different parts of the country. So Citizenship Amendment Act 2019 alongside NRC was also being part of the several protests that you may have seen in the news. So we say this CAA or NRC together. So this CAA, that is Citizenship Amendment Act 2019, was passed by the Parliament of India on 11 December 2019. And remember, it had one specific thought process or feature, that is providing a pathway to Indian citizenship for persecuted religious minorities living in Afghanistan, Bangladesh, Pakistan, that is all our neighboring countries, and Hindus, Sikhs, Buddhists, Jain, Parsis or Christians were listed among this. Right? So CAA and NRC protests are a series of protests in India against Citizenship Amendment Act, which happened during the 2019 and 20, and still in many parts these are being protested. So protesters in all regions are concerned that upcoming compilation of NRC, that is National Register of Population, might be used to deprive Muslims of Indian citizenship. That is what their main concern is. Now comes the international publications. So the idea is that what about the other publications apart from these four major pillars of sources of data? So remember, United Nations and its various organs, right? Its ancillary organs like World Bank, produce several population data as well. So the demographic yearbook published by UN is one of the most important statistics for world population, remember. So it provides data on wide ranging topics like population size, area, density, urban population, population growth, age, sex composition, number of births, birth rate, number of deaths and death rates across the world. So if you're looking for a world data, this is one place to go. Apart from this, it also gives you data on fertility, mortality, marriage, divorce, migration, and several other population census statistics collected from across the world, right? Now, apart from the UN, remember UNDP, United Nations Development Programme, also gives us some data in their annual report, HDI, or we say HDR report, and then we have FAO, UNESCO, and ILO. So, production of yearbook by FAO, then yearbook of labor statistics, and also the statistical yearbook of UNESCO, and World Health Statistics of WHO is very famous, and it's giving us the world data as well. So this is the fifth pillar of the population data, or we say source of population data for the world level, that is international publications. So now, when we have learnt about the different aspects and different sources of data related to population and demography, in the sessions to come, we'll be looking more into different topics related to population geography. So stay tuned, stay safe, keep learning and sharing, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel.